Hello?
Okay.
Hi, this is the Freelance Artist panel.
Hello.
And we were having a small technical difficulty with the cord to our slideshow. So we're going to start with an introduction of the panelists, and then we're going to go to a Q&A, and then we're going to start the slideshow in the middle. Okay, so I guess we could start on the right and move to the left.
Yeah, that sounds good.
I'm the artist known as Dreamin' Every Day on Twitter and on Twitter and Tumblr. Sorry, first panel.
I'm Jacob Gordon, also known as Bempo on Twitter.
Hello, Temmie. Is this on? I might. I don't know. Okay. Temmie. Yeah.
My name is Paul Tervoorde. I animate for Studio Yada.
My name is Joe Ryan. I am a freelance animator and also full-time animator.
I'm Allie Maynor. I go by Grind3H on Twitter, and I also animate.
Thank you. The general focus of this panel is going to be how to carry about a possible career in freelance art, all-encompassing, not just animation, but just design, illustration, anything that would possibly help you understand the field of freelance art a little bit better. So maybe give some advice that we probably could have used when we were starting, and some advice that people gave us. Like we said before, unfortunately we don't have, we're a little bit ill-prepared where we don't have anything that can connect to this, and they're going to get us something. We do have a whole presentation prepared, but for now we're just going to take maybe a few questions if you have any, so please feel free to come up to the microphone in the center and ask us any questions or concerns that you have regarding a career in freelance animation that we can answer now and maybe address later in the slide as well. So.
Questions?
Thank you.
Hello?
Hi.
Hello.
So I guess when you guys are working with smaller, I'm just going to say game developers, I know you're talking generally about freelance art, but game developers, and they bring you on for asset creation and animation, do you ever have a hard time curving passion for the project sometimes, so that you don't kind of overreach, so that you can focus on your work and make your work good, so you don't have to dip into like having to do promotional work or like encouraging the developer to try to find more help, more hands on the project instead of trying to do too many things, and so you kind of slow down your pace, the project pace, because you're spreading yourself pretty thin. Like maybe just comment on that in general, that kind of thing. Thanks.
Yeah.
You want
Should I
to
go?
go back this way?
Yeah.
I think on smaller, especially like indie game projects, the teams are small and they expect you to put your hands in more places. I think that in those cases, just like understanding deadlines and communication is really helpful. But like I just think that like just reassessing where you are and what your goals are will like help you say, well, if I'm doing this thing for the project and this isn't really what I want to be aspiring to do and this isn't really helping me there, then maybe I'll try to focus more in another area. But that's just something that just with smaller projects, I mean, it is sometimes just the case where they want you to dip into more areas.
Oh, sorry. Hang on a second.
We have one.
Oh, sweet. We have a laptop.
Yep, you got it.
Okay, sorry about that.
While we're setting it up, do you want to continue answering the question? Or
Yeah, absolutely. Just continue asking questions while we set up.
Oh, also, sorry, I had a small answer about the, the passion question as well. I guess sometimes it's kind of easy to lose motivation on a project, especially if it's like not something that's yours. And I don't know, I guess powering through it or taking small breaks tends to help a lot. I don't know, sorry. Okay. Also, sorry, we're just setting up the presentation on this laptop here.
I actually can't answer the question while I'm working on this. The previous question? I have an answer for it.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Oh, did someone answer a new one? Okay.
Hi. As an artist myself that frequently posts on like other social media, like Twitter, Instagram, or YouTube, how would you describe your experiences managing a social media account for art, like to help promote your work and get your work out there? Like, how would you describe your experiences doing that?
I think it's good to have primarily one account that posts art, and oh God, I'm sorry, I'm not really used to speaking into these type of mics. If you like to post a lot of like non-art related things, it might be good to have a second account just for kind of like spam posting and stuff. But it's good to keep most of your general focus, or at least I guess your media tab, mostly your art, I guess,
Yes.
and not too many random things, because I think that I think when clients look to hire, they like to look through the media tab,
Yeah.
and sometimes at least on Twitter, and I think it's like can get kind of distracting if there's like a lot of like personal life stuff.
Yes.
It's okay to have kind of a personal life on your art Twitter if you don't have too much,
Yeah.
but yeah, that's.
And I guess a follow-up is, I guess, how do you guys feel about like trying to separate that sort of personal life from your professional Twitter? Because I know some people like to converse with other artists they know or other friends. So like, do you guys find it like a bit like, I guess, difficult, like trying to self-restrain yourself from like posting too much, I guess, useless things on your professional accounts?
I'm kind of bad at that. Most of my Twitter is kind of sporadic. I'm not so good with that, but I think like mostly just making sure like you're not like maybe tweeting too much a day, or because I know that sometimes when I follow new artists, if I find that they're tweeting a lot, I'm kind of like less inclined to continue following, just because like I kind of like to see a lot of people on my feed. But I guess toning it down if you're kind of like have a more sporadic posting style, or like to post a lot. But I think also everybody here has like a different opinion on that. Or,
Yeah, you know how you can pin a tweet on top of your Twitter? I use that myself for all the links that I have. I have a separate portfolio that shows all my work. This is kind of a good idea to do that, so people can see your work right away, the very first tweet.
Also, some people put a demo reel as well.
Yeah.
As like their
Oh, yeah, that's
pin
what
tweet.
I do.
Yeah, I guess for like animators.
Yeah, demo reels are very important. You want to make sure. It's good to have like a demo reel like in like a pinned tweet if you're on like Twitter, or if it's like right in your profile, because then potential jobs can just click it, look at your work right there, and get a good impression of what kind of artist you are and what kind of work you do. So having that stuff at the forefront is very important.
Oh,
Thank you.
you're welcome. Thank you for your question.
Hi. So I sort of like myself want to sort of get into freelance art, and I'm just like wondering what's a good way to start? Like, how do you get your name out there? Like something like that, you know?
Just posting frequently, posting art every day is a really good idea if you can. Even posting like unfinished sketches, and it kind of sometimes if you like make a mix of like personal original art and also fan art, it helps kind of circulate a bit as people kind of share, and they like sharing their favorite things. I think that kind of helps get your work around, and always remembering to sign your work, because people like to steal pictures sometimes and not and repost them, and so it's good to like leave that credit on, so in case like an employer does see that picture, they could go back and find the ad. So.
I think that it's good to have a balance of like original art and fan art, because fan art kind of casts out like a bigger net, and then you can get people interested in any kinds of other stuff that you make, but just putting stuff online in general is nice, and you can just experiment and see what people like too.
Just being frequent with just posting, even if it's just little sketches. I find that people really like artists that they kind of see how they grow, even if it's just like little sketches, like finished pieces. It's like, wow, you know, they're not like a big like celebrity. They're a person like me. I can do this too. Like, that's encouraging for everybody. So just be frequent with your art, just post it. That's it. Just make what you like. That's all it takes. Make what you like, and if your interests happen to also, can't think of the word right now, I'm very bad at words, sorry. If they happen to align with other people's interests, then hey, that gets you more attention, and more attention just happens. But if you just keep making stuff that you like because you like it, it's a win-win for everybody.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank you for your question.
Hi, so I'm an artist that is completely self-taught. I have taken classes through high school, but I have not had the time or money to pursue higher education art classes. Is there any advice about freelance artists who either cannot or have not pursued higher education in art classes, like haven't taken animation classes or illustration classes or anything like that? Because I'm really nervous about that affecting my chances as an artist.
You definitely don't need to go to school, I think, to go to do art as a career. Like probably like half my friends haven't gone to art college or anything like that, and are kind of in like a similar situation where they're more self-taught, which is also I find really cool. And I think just like again, it's like kind of similar to the other what my answer would be. It's just like to kind of keep posting art frequently, and I guess
in a professional setting, though, would they look at your degrees and would that factor as like you don't have a degree, we can't hire you?
No, I don't think I've heard many instances of that. I think I've seen like application forms where it's like you must have like a bachelor's degree in arts or something, but I think even in like those major studios where they maybe have on their application form like must have a bachelor's degree, like a bunch of them don't. And they get in through other ways. I can tell you that there's probably like lots of different maybe people looking to hire through Tumblr and Twitter, and that's not just like indie circles or studios. It can also be like major studios that reach out through like places like Tumblr and Twitter. So I would also keep a lookout through that. And also that's why it's also important to keep updating and like kind of posting sketches and art a lot.
Yeah, like the amount of people that I know that haven't gone to art school but are professional artists is huge. So that's not really something that you need to be super concerned with. Art school is great and beneficial to anybody who can afford it, but it's not an absolute necessity.
I find that art school more kind of teaches you the discipline. It kind of like helps you find a good workflow for what you want to do. But if you want to learn like a craft, the internet is like an infinite resource of information, and hopefully it stays that way like for as long as possible, because there's just so much information out there. So you can easily teach yourself animation or any kind of art that you want to do thanks to that. And there's always people out there willing to help you too that are also trying to learn. You know, it's a community thing. So I don't think it's really important to go to art school. Like, I don't think you're doomed if you don't go. Like, you're like, so it will work out. Just keep at it.
And if the amount of information being so huge and like daunting because there's so much of it seems overwhelming, just remember that you can break things down into smaller goals, and like taking it all in like little chunks and pieces just makes it seem more achievable. And that's really helpful.
Awesome, thank you so much. It's really encouraging. Thank you.
Thank you, and best of luck. Oh, also, I hope, do we sound clear on these? I can't really tell. I've never spoken on this sort of microphone before. Can you guys hear us okay? Yes. Okay, that's good.
Yeah.
Also, if you have difficulty standing or waiting in lines, just make it known and we can try to answer your question.
Oh, sorry.
Hey, oh no, it's fine. Okay, gotta gauge it. So I've actually done some sort of animation freelance, and something that I've run into is a lot of kind of misunderstanding of the scope of how much like animation costs and how many frames. Like, I've had cases where people have asked for like animations where I had to tell them like, hey, this is gonna cost like $300, like $400, like considering all the frames and everything that's gonna go into it. Like, animation has so many sort of, I guess, dimensions and variables that it's a lot harder to gauge than like a still picture and saying like, if I do something like this, it'll cost like this set price. Have you guys ever run into problems like that? And like, what's a good solution to that?
I think I could already tell you you're charging too little.
What's that?
I think you're charging too little.
Oh
Or,
yeah,
like-
probably. I just started it, so it was just like, it's the first time, so it's screwed.
Yeah, it's actually, we have a pricing little section on our like little slideshow thing that we can't get up. But I think
Still working, sorry.
Oh, what? I'm sorry.
I'm still working at it.
Oh, okay, we're getting. Take-
You can try to charge per hour. That way you're not like intensely slaving away at something and you're not being compensated for that time. And if if to the person that's paying you, if that seems daunting, you can always put a cap on how much money is being given. That way they won't be afraid of charging per hour. If you're like, okay, so the maximum cap is like 60 hours, then
Okay.
they won't need to worry about going over.
Okay.
Yeah, we have like a little slide on it. I feel so bad. I can't say it. It's okay. I'm trying to say it the way I remember, but I need to have the words.
It's good.
Yeah, like
Sorry.
I've had like good times with it where somebody just wanted like a simple loop that's like not even a second long, and it's like 5 frames, and
Oh.
that's a realistic price.
Mhm.
But then I get things where it's like, yeah, somebody wants like 600 frames, and it's like, I can't do that.
Yeah.
But
600 frames, jeez.
well, $600. I said the wrong thing. actually.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, yeah. No, I've never done that many. So, awesome. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
So when you, this is for anybody up there, when you start taking freelance jobs, how many do you typically go around with? Because I know certain people have certain limits. So do you, like for animation, do people tend to like kind of work on a couple of different animation freelances, or same with illustrations? Do you know should you work on your limit, or do you try to vary every now and then?
Do you mean like different kinds of?
Like how many jobs you take on?
Oh yeah, I think that both me and Paul can. We both take on several jobs at the same time, but we're actually working on a few together.
Yeah, I'm doing 2 jobs at the same time right now. I don't think personally that I can do any more than that because
Yeah.
it just takes too much time. I'm trying to do 6 hours of each job every day, and I think that's completely my limit. But
Well, that's a lot. That's like.
yeah,
12
I know.
hours.
What is your limit?
Less than that.
Hmm?
It's less than that. It's like less. Oh. Well, usually I think it's healthy. This will also be on the slides again. Where's this work? But usually, I think trying to stay between 40-hour work weeks is a really healthy way to do it, and making sure, I guess, talking with your clients as well to make sure you have that they know that you're working with other clients as well. So, like, also communication back and forth.
Okay.
Important.
It's also okay to turn down jobs and say that, like, when time frees up in the future, you will be available for them. And yeah, I think that what Temi said about 40-hour work weeks is a really good way to do it, because if you're going well over that, you may not even produce good work anyway.
Yeah, you don't want to overwork yourself. That's very unhealthy.
Thank you.
Hey, thank you.
Hey, I just wanted to know if you had any tips or recommendations for building a first portfolio or demo reel.
Try it.
I'm not sure.
I'm not sure how to do that.
Joe,
You.
do you have any stuff on building portfolio?
I do. I'm sorry. Hi. All right. On building a portfolio, the strongest thing you can really do is just have some variety in the work that you do. Variety, and also showcase your strengths as well. Your portfolio is supposed to be a demonstration of your strongest assets, and when you're providing what you can do to anybody who's looking to hire you for any type of art, they want to make sure that you not only meet but maybe even exceed the qualities that they have set as a standard. Basically, when you're setting up your portfolio, look for your strongest stuff, and also make sure that you're trying different things. Even among the things that you're trying that you've never tried before, you might find that you have a strength in doing that thing you've never tried. So yeah, when you're building a portfolio, just start out with like setting, maybe like if you're a character designer, try like, I've never made a robot before, but I'm really good at making like pixies. Try doing robots, and you'll learn that you're actually really good at robots, and then you'll add that to your portfolio. Your portfolio is going to just constantly be building if you try new stuff.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Oh, also sorry, I also wanted to add in there as well. Keeping your portfolio. Oh, you could stay or sit. Keeping your portfolio kind of short, so keeping it around 12 to 20 pieces is usually a good amount, I think. And having a mix of like both finished pieces and sketches. I think clients really like to see, certain types of clients like to see like the entire process. So if you could show like early work, it's also really fun to see, as well as like finished stuff. Thank you.
Hey guys,
Hello.
I follow you all on Twitter, and I think you guys are really awesome. Happy that you guys are here. I had a question. I think with freelance, a lot of people feel skeptical to sacrifice the freedom of working on their own and instead take a job within a corporation or a company doing animation work. So can you talk a little bit about like the necessity of maybe sacrificing having to work for those, or if it's even necessary, or just going wholly freelance?
I guess like it depends on preference. I don't know.
Yeah, I think that as long as you're like looking at your goals and like what you want to do with your time, I mean, I know that a lot of us like just need to make rent, but I guess that just like it's really up to like what motivates you to make stuff too. And I mean, like sometimes you will work so hard that you can't work on your own project or your own thing, but sometimes it's the time and place and what you need at that point in your life that will really guide you there.
Cool, thanks.
Yeah, thank you. I'm sorry, we're also like shifting back and forth, like trying to get this thing together.
Hey.
Hello.
So I'm not very confident in my art, but a lot of people say that I'm pretty good, and I want to start charging commissions.
Mm-hmm.
But money's a weird topic. How do you first approach charging people actual money for things you do?
That's a like kind of scary topic. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
I guess commissions are kind of like it's definitely like a job work thing, but I think it's like I think as you're starting out, it's kind of okay to like have like random prices. I think like even when I started, it was like $10 commissions or something, just to kind of get used to accepting money for work. But I think it's kind of fair eventually as you kind of get more used to it to start accepting like somewhere from 60 to 100 plus. I've noticed. I know some friends charge like 200 to 400 for like commission stuff. So, but I think when you're first starting, it's just like I think it's kind of safe to like kind of charge a little bit low, just because it's like you don't really know your speed yet. You don't really know how if you're making, I guess, profit. You just want to like get yourself started. Yeah, that's what I think.
Just understand that like. Even if you're not super confident in your abilities, like your time is still valuable as a person, and like also like if your friends like say that you're good and stuff, like understand that like as an artist you're constantly in your head, and a lot of that will like allow you to undervalue yourself a lot, and like just understand that like your time is valuable, and like. Just like try to, I guess, like take in positivity and just like, just try to value like your time as a person, and just don't undersell yourself, but just try to keep like, or like just build confidence just by like making stuff and to continue there.
All right, thanks guys.
Thank you. Also, I'm sorry if some of my answers also are kind of like backtracking. I don't know why I keep getting distracted by the echo when I'm talking, so I keep forgetting what I'm saying mid-sentence.
It's cool.
I'm really sorry.
Hi, everybody. I'm a first-year illustration student. I think the hardest part for me as an artist personally is communicating with other artists and creating a circle of support. Did you guys have any big hurdles to overcome when you were first starting out and making other friends within the industry?
I guess the idea was kind of scary. I think like art school kind of. Oh yay! Yes. Sorry.
Yes. How do I full screen this thing?
But yeah.
Yeah. So wait, I didn't.
Yeah.
Okay. I think that starting is definitely scary, and I think art school creates this kind of illusion where like. Networking is like networking is important, but it's also like you have to remember not to dehumanize people as well, because that's the thing that art school tends to sometimes, depending on the art school, tends to do is like you need to go to this party to meet with this like really important person, and then you go there, and then with this really important person, you just kind of like you don't see them as a person. I guess just be careful doing that, because that's like this thing that art school sometimes promotes, which is, or at least like some of the atmosphere kind of promotes. So I just be careful of that.
Just remember that people are people,
Yeah.
and like you don't have to put people on a pedestal just because they have a huge following. Just try to like be nice and like just treat somebody just with kindness and just talk to them like a normal person, and I think that helps a lot.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I guess we'll go through the rest of the questions, and then we'll just switch over to like the slideshow as well. Okay.
Hi, I'm short.
It's okay. Oh, I'm sorry.
It's okay. I was just wondering, how do you guys handle taxes? Because I know that it's not like a fun question, but I did a freelance project over, I think a year ago, and I was really confused by how many forms there were that you could possibly have to fill out. So I was wondering if you had any advice for maybe organizing that, or like what you keep on hand if you need to do like a form really quick for a client or something like that.
Yeah, that part's really, really scary. I know some people use TurboTax. I personally just use my family's accountant. We're all kind of like independent contractors, so we just use an accountant. I think using an accountant, especially if you're doing freelance, is like a really good idea because your income's going to be really sporadic. So you're probably going to want some help with all of those like random numbers and forms and all that, and 1099s and all that. So like keep that all in track. Yeah.
I think that there are also, I think that there's a Freelance Artist Guild book that the NYC section sells, and they have like an annual one that updates every year.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hi.
Hello.
So I'm an artist myself. Something I find I have a lot of trouble wrapping my head around is self-promotion. I hesitate a lot sending emails to people, and I do hand out like a lot of business cards, but I always have this like nagging fear in the back of my mind, like, oh God, am I bothering people? Am I turning into like that guy who puts flyers on under people's windshield wipers in the parking lot? I'm just kind of wondering, in your experience, what's like an acceptable way to kind of self-promote, and how do you deal with like self-doubt of that nature?
I think, again, it's like posting frequently. I do notice like fan art tends to help, like mixing your work with like personal work with fan art, and not to separate like fan art and personal work, because I think a lot of the times that kind of collides, because you put a lot of your heart also into fan art as well. But that's also just through the internet as well. I'm not so sure how promotion works outside of real, but.
I think that like that's like a huge nagging doubt in my head too, and I just like I think that as long as I just try to get to know a person first and just try to treat them like how I would a friend, like that helps. And then like later on, like when I know somebody and if I'm being genuine about it and like I really say the things I mean, then it doesn't feel so fake.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, thank you. Best of luck.
Hi.
Hello.
A huge personal fear of mine is like someone claiming my art as their own, and so I was wondering how you guys would go about that as far as like art thieves are concerned, or like someone trying to like take your own art and make it their own, because that's something I'm really afraid of.
If this makes you feel any better, when you make your work, it's automatically copyrighted to you. So like you definitely own the copyright as soon as it comes into existence. That always makes me feel a little better when I remember when I was first learning. Oh, sure thing.
When somebody actually copies your art, and you know that they claim it as their own by the sign your name, but that's just their interpretation of that particular portion from you. But they're just really take it as a compliment. Don't take it as thievery. They're never going to argue with you fully. It never hang up in court. You were the first one. You signed it. You dated. That was the earliest date ever. And all the pen work that went into that, it traces back to that date of drawing and everything. So take it as a compliment. You're free.
Sort of.
I think that like I think that there's a little bit of truth in that, but like there's like a blurred line, but like because I kind of feel like to a certain degree nothing is like, I feel like almost like everything's been done, but you as a person and like what you bring to something, like I feel like if everybody made something here, and even if it was the same thing, it would all be different still because of like who we are as artists. And I don't really think that somebody can take that away in a sense. So I feel like that kind of helps me.
Okay. Cool. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Good luck.
I know there's been a lot of good questions today from everybody, and you guys have been just really great with a lot of the advice and everything. I really appreciate it.
Oh, thank you.
Y'all can kick me out at any time for what I'm about to say, but a lot of the big stuff with my art is that I kind of go all over the place in terms of like content and things of that nature, things like that. And one of the things I kind of have to kind of still deal with a little bit is kind of going with this piece or that piece, or is this piece going too far? Is this piece, what's the right thing to say about this piece right here? Or as far as like things of, is there places where you kind of deal with like all sorts of different types of content, all sorts of different ranges, or you generally try to stay as kind of safe as possible with kind of what you're trying to do, just kind of thinking from a content perspective?
So I think it's okay to kind of try a lot of different things if you're experimenting with very many assets of what you're working with. But there's also a lot of merit in trying to push yourself so beyond your comfort zone in a certain thing.
Right.
That is particularly how you grow. Whenever I start to work on something and I kind of go with intent to push myself, I'll usually never really like the result, but I'll feel if I go towards something like that later, then I'll feel a little bit stronger for at least having tried something I'm not really comfortable with. In terms of trying you think you're maybe spreading yourself too thin? Is that what you're?
I don't think I'm spreading myself too thin. I think that I'm thinking that some of the art that I kind of do might go a bit too far content-wise, even though, there's things of warnings and things of that nature. Look, I'm a greasy old man. I've done a lot of stuff for a long old time, all right? So this is kind of, I'm gonna sound like Beetlejuice, ain't I? But still, but just from the prospect of kind of, have you ever had kind of struggle with, God, is this going too far? What do I need to do about this? Or is it normally something where, okay, I know what my range is. I ain't messing with none of the stuff that's out in this area. Like do you kind of set clear boundaries, or do you kind of really experiment and go all over the place with things? Or just kind of trying to field that question from the perspective of, like, what's the range, kind of how do you feel about going in certain directions? Have you ever been reproached for anything like that? Things like that.
Not really. The work that I kind of do, I kind of keep to, I guess, good taste usually.
Right.
I don't typically like to push boundaries, honestly, in terms of, it's I don't know, be nice.
I think that like if you're gonna be true to yourself, I think that like a good rule of thumb is like, is something I make something that could potentially like hurt someone, and just like if that happens to be the case, maybe just like leave a warning or something as consideration, but just keep true to yourself, but also at the same time just be respectful of what other people's limits are.
Definitely. I mean, that's one thing that I've always tried to do with a lot of stuff is say, I'm gonna tell you now this, and just kind of keeping it good with that, keeping it respectful and things of that nature. So that's everything. Thanks for all your answers, and thanks for the panel so far.
Oh, thank you.
Just to comment on what he said, I was thinking, I kind of thought of Paul Robertson's artwork and the way you were talking about it. Personally, I've emailed Paul Robertson before and he's responded. So like, if you think your art can be provocative, email other artists that you know making provocative artwork and ask them. Like, he actually responded. I asked him if he could come and give a lecture, but he was in Australia. Right. And he's like, I can't do that, man, sorry. But I'm sure he'd love to answer that kind of question. Sure.
That's pretty good. I can follow up on that.
We should do the slides now, maybe.
Yeah.
Would it be okay if we started the slides and
And
you
then
guys can talk?
and we turn with Q&A. I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry.
All right, so
Okay, sorry.
we're
Welcome
going to
to
start the
Freelance Art.
presentation now then.
Sorry about
We
that.
can bring back the line after the slides. I'm sorry about that.
Yeah, I'm really sorry.
All right, so starting with Freelance Art.
Okay, sweet. Okay, I can't read that. Wait.
Have it on your phone.
Yeah, it's on my phone. Hang on a second. Oh, you can read that though.
What is it? Why do we do it? Is it for you?
Do we want to answer those questions or leave it rhetorical? Oh,
It's rhetorical. Leave them rhetorical,
Okay.
maybe? We'll answer them when we go through.
Okay. Okay.
All right, so
introductions. We already did this part.
It's okay. Should we-
We could skip this part. We already did it.
this is important also. Be sure to drink water, please. I think that's the most important thing that I should probably bring up during this whole presentation. Just drink water. All right, so.
Okay, yeah. See, a lot of the, I felt bad because like we had a lot of the answers on our slides, and I was like, oh no.
Hey, it's happening now, so we're good.
Okay, so is anybody wants to read?
Yeah. All right, so here's the important thing about pricing. Make sure that you count the hours that you do while you're working in freelance, especially on projects that take a particularly long amount of time, like 6 weeks, several months. The amount of time that you should probably work in a day is usually no more than 40 hours for a day. It's 8 hours. Per week, you don't want to work more than 40 if you're working full-time. If you're working maybe part-time on it, then make sure to count those hours as well. But total up the hours that you plan on working for each project. And if you're being paid what's the term, flat rate?
Yeah.
Yeah, if you're being paid a flat rate, make sure that equates to the amount of time that you're putting into this particular job. Like, if you're being given $1,000 for 6 weeks of work, if you're working full-time, that's less than $4 an hour that you're working. It really doesn't add up if you put all your effort into this one thing that you're not really getting that much back for.
Yeah, and also don't price your work under minimum wage because that's very bad. It's like not really unusual in our field to also eventually go from 30 to 60 an hour. So I would just also keep that in mind. There's like something to work towards, and also you can go even higher than that.
Next.
Yeah.
Make sure you negotiate with anybody that's looking to have you as a person to work with in terms of pricing. Know the value of your work. Feel free to talk with them and negotiate a price that's comfortable for both of you to work with. It's common that if I'm given a freelance job that I will discuss with the person who's looking to give me work. They're willing to talk and listen. If a job is going to refuse you based on a bad wage, you're probably dodging a bullet and a headache with that client anyway.
Yeah.
Some people just won't budge.
Yeah, it's not really worth it. So, yeah.
There's yeah.
Working part-time jobs, yeah, I was going to bring out that point. I just wasn't sure if we went there already. Working part-time jobs especially while you're starting out, or even like midway, or when you're already established or whatever, it's not super shameful or anything. There's always going to be quiet and really, really full seasons of like work. So like for some reason I noticed it's never just like, oh, I have like a decent amount of work always, like evenly spread out. It's always like these few months I have like 10 jobs I'm like juggling, and then there'll be like 3 months like I can't get any work. So like if you haven't like saved up enough like money towards those like drier seasons, it's totally okay and acceptable to like just take a part-time job or whatever. It's not shameful or anything at all.
Anyone?
You want to do this? I feel that. You can read the next part. Oh, I didn't read the second paragraph though.
About this?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I kind of brought this up before, but understand like.
Yeah, just don't burn yourself out.
Yeah, don't burn out. I've been guilty of this myself, having worked several hours in a single day on a certain project, and you're really better off if you're like staying up past a certain time that you'd go to sleep at. Just go to sleep at that time. Your health is more important than getting a job done like the day before it's supposed to be done. It will be done.
Yeah. Okay. Social media. Make an obvious way for clients to find you. So make a business email. I'm kind of bad with that because I don't do that as much. But I notice for a lot of people and a lot of clients, they really, really like it if you have like your email in your description. They really want an easy way to find you. They find your art somehow. They stumble across it by like your art was retweeted or reblogged, and they're just like, oh man, that person's great. They'd be great for our show or our game or whatever. But I have no way to contact them privately. I guess I'll just find someone else. So it's good to have like that email in your description or somewhere easily accessible and findable for that person.
Basically, a lot of people that post on Twitter about like, I tried to contact you, but I couldn't find an email anywhere. Like, really make sure it's findable, make sure it's accessible. It's like, yeah,
And also when you're starting out, it's good to also post a lot of art, because it's just like, I don't know, you're really kind of getting a feel, and it's just like, it's always really hard starting out.
Any work also.
Yeah.
If it's rough, if it's unfinished, put it out there. People will happily share it. In a lot of people will even say that they've gotten more hits on work in progress pieces than they've gotten unfinished ones.
Oh yeah, that's the thing. Yeah.
So anything that you do, share your work frequently.
Even if you don't like it.
Yeah, especially if you're uncomfortable with it. It's probably, you'll probably get feedback on it as well if you're welcome to that.
And you can always delete work after time as well. So it's just like, it's not there forever, but if that makes you feel any better about posting work.
There's also, on a lot of, if you follow a lot of artists on Twitter, some of them will even share like leads they've gotten on work through social media. I've seen a ton of posts that are just DM me your portfolio if I'm looking for animators. Take those offers if they're presented.
If you see them come across your dash or timeline, like, yeah, like, oh yeah, man.
They put it out there to have people respond to them.
Yeah.
Take that opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
We good with this one? Professionalism now?
Yeah. Do you guys want to read the slides too?
Professionalism?
Want to read the slides too?
I'm good. Do you want me to read it? Joe? Okay, Joe reads it. All right, so it is healthy to ask for help if you're feeling uncomfortable with something. If any art is just sort of not working out for you, reach out to friends, reach out to anybody that's willing to give what their take on it. It's okay to ask for help is basically what I'm saying. All of us have put out stuff in there, even amongst our friends and our small like cliques. It's if you're in like a chat or a Discord that has like an art channel, post stuff in there, and some friends will provide feedback. That's what we usually do. Yeah. So it's and be.
And don't be afraid to ask questions.
It's also important that if you are somewhat familiar with the field, if somebody does come to you as sort of an inexperienced person in the field, you can share your resources with them if you have any. Through a lot of people that I follow, I've actually learned a few more trades. So, like, if it's okay to talk to people, be polite while talking to them, of course, but they'll be happy to give you any information that they have and any tips that they have. It does work usually. Don't be afraid to ask questions is sort of the point we're getting at here.
And if people don't respond, it's okay. You don't have to take it personally. Sometimes we're just busy.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm. So when you are working with a client, it is important that you maintain open communication with them a lot. If you feel you're going to miss a deadline, if you feel that your work is actually even going well, let them know, and they'll appreciate the emails. I will feel that if I'm working with a client, I think actually somebody said this before in the Q&A, but if they feel that they're reaching out or contacting one person too much, they'll feel uncomfortable. Mm-hmm. That's in cases when you have to communicate with a client, this is good, this is important. Make sure you keep that field of communication open. They'll want to know the updates. If you feel you're not going to miss a deadline, don't be afraid to reach out to them too, because they'll be able to understand and work with you towards maybe a solution that'll get that thing done a little bit faster. Because their whole goal is that it's done. We good with this one?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, this is important too. Drink more water.
You can always drink water.
Yeah, stay healthy, stay hydrated.
Also, there were still people that wanted to ask questions.
We're not done yet.
Oh, okay.
Oh. But people can still ask questions if they like.
At the end, I'm sorry.
This one's important to go over for sure. Tim.
All right. Do not breach your NDAs. NDA stands for non-disclosure agreement. Don't do that. You can get in a lot of trouble, and I don't know. It's probably one of the worst things that you can do, because it puts not only yourself at jeopardy, but the client and the company, whoever you're working for. It's just really, really bad. So really hold your tongue. I know you're really excited to work on certain projects. You'll be on a project you'll never imagine you'd be on, and it's just like, oh my God, I really want to talk about this and share this with people. But you really you can't talk about it because it would be really, really bad. And then you could talk about it and be like, I can't believe I'm working on this thing that I can't talk about. And then that person's just like, well, you just got us in a lot of trouble, so you're fired. So.
And even if somebody shares their NDA with you, you don't have to do the same with them.
Yeah, don't feel obligated as well. Like, in general, just like don't breach them. It's just a bad idea.
This is also you.
Okay. So jobs that involve contracts, read your contracts thoroughly. Don't be afraid to ask your clients questions about confusing things about your contracts. Okay, so contracts are kind of scary. So I think for the most part, I'd say like maybe 80% plus of clients have good intentions, but sometimes contracts can say things that you don't really totally agree with, and it's not like a bad, it's totally okay to like be like, contact your boss and be like, or your soon-to-be boss, I'm not okay with this clause, like, is there a way we could change it? And like, and then they will change it. They won't just, if they're going to be like, no, you have to sign this contract, then it's like, just back out. Don't sign anything you're not comfortable with, because you can accidentally sign away rights, you can accidentally bar yourself from working on other projects you want to work on, like things like that. So just make sure you read your contracts thoroughly, because those are very legally binding.
All right. So someone actually asked this question before regarding how they would deal with taxes.
Mm-hmm. We kind of answered it earlier, but we
You
can
think
read
so?
it.
Should we redo it?
No, we could read it. We just like thoroughly.
Okay.
Do you want to read it? Okay, read it. Okay, so I guess remember when you're making an income, it's not going to be like that exact money that you have. So you'll have that money in your bank account, right? As soon as you get it, you'll be like, oh yeah, I'm rich. And then like tax time comes, like it's like quarterly tax season, and it's just like, oh, I what? I don't have that money in my bank account to give to the government. It's always a good idea to save some of that money from your income and just put it away, because you don't want that quarterly time to come and you don't have the money to give to the IRS or the government or wherever you live, whatever collection agency for the government exists.
I was just gonna say, it's also really important that just like, it's a good habit to get into whenever you do get paid from a freelance job, to just put off like a pretty decent chunk to the side.
Yeah.
Because when that season rolls around, you'll have that like little stash
Yeah.
saved, and you won't get hit as hard once like you start punching the numbers.
Yeah.
And freelance jobs do actually, they can hit really, really hard.
Yeah.
So just make sure you keep like a pretty safe chunk.
Yeah, money stored away. It's like, I guess it's easy to remember. The way I do it is just like, I know this is like way too much for like whatever state I live in, but I'm just like, okay, 20% of this isn't mine. And I don't know, maybe if it helps, like even having like a separate account where you keep money, it's like, okay, this is the money that's eventually going to go to the IRS or whatever, and having this account this is my spending money. So like that sort of thing.
Right.
Oh, it's also, there's one more point I want to bring on there. Clients aren't always going to deduct those taxes from you when they give you that paycheck. Studios mostly deduct those taxes for you or take out those taxes for you to give to the state or whatever. But independent contractors, that doesn't really happen so much. So just remember, especially with like 1099s and all that, they aren't giving that money, they aren't taking that money from your paycheck to give to the government. So just remember, yeah.
All right, so tax deductibles. Keep track of the stuff that you use, purchases you make for your job, even hardware that you would buy. Keep the receipts and make sure you keep everything for that, because that can be included in your deductibles.
Yeah, that's pretty much.
Yeah, that's something.
Yeah. Oh yeah, so things that count as deductibles are things like art supplies, a laptop sometimes I think, if your work requires that laptop to work. I don't know, it depends on the current tax laws at the time, but yeah, sometimes tickets too, if you're flying out to meet a client, those all count as
Just whatever, if something was done for your job.
Yeah, if something was done for your job, you could take that out. And a deductible is basically like, you don't get slammed as hard with taxes at the end of the quarter or year or whatever. And you want to keep as much money as you can, so.
All right, ready for the last one?
Huh?
Ready for the last one?
Is it really the last one? I don't think it's the last one.
That's the last tax one.
Okay. All right, hang on a second. I went to lock mode again. Shit. Wait, fuck. Also, insurance. And wait, no, that's the title. Oh yeah, an accountant. It's good to get an accountant if you're an independent contractor because it gets really, really confusing to handle all those 1099s and all that. And you kind of have a sporadic income every month because it's not always going to be the same amount, like when you work like a full-time job or something like that. So, but also there's ways to also do your taxes independently. Like I have a few friends that use TurboTax and other sorts of programs like that on the internet.
And
What it says.
that's
We did it.
All right, one last point to go over.
Okay, well, last point.
This one's important. Make sure you take care of
Yay,
yourself.
Self-care. Drink water. Your work shouldn't be your life. Otherwise, you might not live very long. So don't do that. You'll burn out real fast if you make your life your work. So don't do that. You have a whole life ahead of you to make work. So please take care of your health.
Like really, just if we said it before, most you should work is 8 hours per day, 40 hours per week if you're working full time. Make sure you take it easy. Take breaks, but while working, drink water.
Yeah, do that.
Make yourself meals. Take walks. Whatever you need. You shouldn't be working this super duper hard.
Mm-hmm.
You make the work, but so you come first.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, and also seeking therapy or like a psychiatrist or something, that's not shameful at all. We know plenty of friends who seek help because it's a really like mentally taxing field. Like it's really like misleading. You're like, oh, freelance is fun. I get to do my own schedules or whatever. But like the not fun parts about it are just like, oh man, why am I working over a 40-hour work week or like working so much more? That's really strange. So, and like sometimes like that inconsistency can like kind of get to you. So like seeking out help, that's not like shameful at all, and it's totally fine to do. And like most people in our field seek help, so.
And seriously, you'll do better work if you prioritize self-care. Like that's a real thing. So treat yourself well.
All right. So
we did
that's
it.
the end.
Yay. We did it. Okay, feel free to ask any questions so we can start back up Q&A again.
Also, thanks so much for bearing with us, guys. It was we're sorry that this whole thing kind of got mishmashed and started the whole presentation late, but
yeah,
we hope you guys enjoyed it when we did get it out.
Yeah.
Hi. Yeah, my question was mostly just have you guys considered or have you had experience with working with an agent, and just, I guess, what is the best workflow for you in terms of taking in clients and seeking out clientele?
I don't think any of us up here have actually done work with an agent. Most of us do it without.
I guess, yeah, what do you find beneficial for just, I guess, A, finding the clients, and then B, even if they do come to you, just sort of organizing it and just staying on top of everything?
I guess it's good to, like, well, with clients, I always do, like, I look them up on Google to see if they have any kind of track record. It doesn't have to be, like, a thorough, in-depth check, but if they're, like, a no-name company or no-name client, I might stay away if it's just, like, weird scam things that are popping up as, like, on, like, Google results. I'd be, like, maybe a little wary. In terms of organizing, I guess, like, don't take on more than you know you can handle, and that's kind of hard, especially at first, figuring out how to freelance. You're always just like, oh, I want to accept everything, but don't do that. Even if you have like a lot of cool projects coming your way, like you're really going to be like, okay, I can only accept these 2, and I can't accept any more, because if you accept way too many, you're just like going to do poorly for all of your clients, and it's just going to not turn out so well. So
I just think that just try to see if you can fit everything into a 40-hour work week. That's just really helpful.
yeah, and also leaving weekends free if you can, and giving yourself breaks. Let's always remember and hope to remember.
And drink water.
And drink water.
Thank you.
A couple of my friends and I are aspiring artists, and since you guys are experienced freelance artists and you guys have been doing it for a long time, I was wondering in general, what are your worst experiences as being a freelance artist, or what are your best experiences as being freelance?
I'm going to refrain from naming particular names in this job, but there was a few jobs that I had where I would just sign up. Well, not a few. There was one job where I just signed up for it and received no email in reply to it. And I said, yes, I'm ready. He laid out the work, and then after that, it was just complete silence. There's also another one I had worked, which was just so disorganized on their part. I would do all the work that I had, but then I would run out and I'd have no more, and I would contact them frequently and get nothing left until suddenly, here it is, here's more work. It's mostly it's just kind of silence is usually the worst thing that will happen whenever I'm working with a client.
I don't really remember.
This isn't specifically about a client, but I just think that like one of the hardest things about freelance for me is just that like a lot of the time I spend it alone and in my head. So just like it all just relates back to the self-care thing. And for like specifically clients, I just try to ask as many questions as I can and keep the lines of communication open, because at least that way they know that you're thinking about it and trying, and then they can also help you if you reach roadblocks, and then you can work together to create a solution.
I think, anything?
Huh?
Anything?
Oh, okay.
I think we're good.
Yeah.
All right. I hope that answered.
What about your best experience?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, did you say, my best experience?
We have none.
I don't really have a best one, but I do have a lot of good ones. Just whenever we talk back and forth, and they're like receptive to what I give them, and I'm receptive to what they give me.
Yeah, I think for the most part, because I want to keep freelancing, most of my clients have been pretty good. I guess it's been pretty good luck on my end. I think most clients I've worked for, I liked most of them. So I don't really. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Hello.
Hello.
A little tiny here.
Oh, sorry. Is there a way to tilt it down?
Yeah. There we go. Okay, so I just have two pretty quick questions. One is about with taxes. I heard, Temi, you said about 20%?
Oh, yeah. I take out a huge percentage just because I'm like, I don't remember the percentage, so.
I was just wondering what the suggestion for everybody else would be, because I've been at a studio for a little while on a freelance basis, and I've been taking out 30% of my income. So after hearing you say that, like 20% was a big percentage, I'm wondering how much, if I just build up a giant savings account or not.
You probably did. That sounds like a lot.
I mean, that's not the worst problem to have.
That's a good
honestly.
thing.
I have too much money.
I know. Okay, that just makes me feel a little better, because I was overcompensating from being really scared of the IRS for this being my first time.
Yeah, the IRS is
my
scary.
second question is about insurance. Do you have any resources of where freelancers can find insurance? Because I saw you didn't really have anything up there on the thing, because that's a big concern for me right now. So I just wanted to know if you guys had suggestions for that.
There's always, I think there's like usually navigators that kind of help. They have offices. I don't know what those offices are called. You can probably look it up, like health insurance navigators, to find places near you to kind of help you, I believe. As well as, I think that for artists that are starting out and they find they're making like around minimum wage, there's always Medicaid, I believe. That's a huge option. And then, not sure.
I think that the Graphics Artist Guild has a number that you can call, and possibly they can put you in contact with somebody that would be helpful.
Yeah, I do have that book you mentioned, the really big one. It's a few years older, but it was really nice. I'm probably gonna get the updated one. And I know the Freelancers Guild did as well, but I've heard very mixed on their health plans. So I didn't know if you guys knew anything that to look into. So just thought I'd ask. But I'm definitely gonna look into that. So thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Good luck.
And Jacob, what was the name of that book again?
I just know that the Graphics Artist Guild in New York sells a book. I don't know the exact name of it, but it's the Graphics Artist Guild, the one based in New York.
Yeah, you can probably Google it and you'll find like a corrected answer or something.
I think that book's called the American Graphic Artists Guild or something like that.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, it's like called a price book or something. But I love the presentation. I'm also a full-time freelancer, and I wish I had this kind of stuff like when I started, because this was like.
Yeah. Okay. The tax stuff, like they don't go over that in school.
Yeah,
the most
I know.
important part.
Yeah, I was completely clueless, and it's scary. Like it really is scary.
It's really scary, and they don't go over that. Oh,
Yeah.
It's crazy.
The other thing that was really scary starting out was contracts. And I've learned over the years that the one thing, because I've kind of resigned myself, like I'm always going to have to transfer over copyright like for most projects, if it's a logo or something, just by default, you have to transfer over copyright. They don't want you to keep it. It's for their business. But the one thing that I'll be really stubborn about is just making sure I can display it on my website. Because if I can't display the work I've made, I'm going to starve. Are there any other things that you guys like are really particular about in contracts that if clients present you with a contract, or things that you like to put in your boilerplate contracts for clients? Just any particulars?
I always look at the ownership spot. That's the part that usually scares me, because that's the, like, what rights can I retain, and how far are you reaching into my personal life to take ownership of my like IPs or whatever, or like your personal work. That's usually what I try to pay attention to, though I don't try to read the whole thing to make sure there isn't things like littered throughout. But yeah, usually there's going to be like some kind of section in there that's like number 4, ownership or something. And I think you can have a lawyer read your contract if you're really unsure, and like the legal jargon is like way too hard to interpret, because I know I have this trouble a lot where I'm just like, oh man, it's taking me all day to read this, it's so hard to interpret. So I believe you can use a lawyer to read contracts if you talk it over with your client before signing it, because you really want to make sure you know what you're signing.
I was also going to say, in regards to being able to showcase you mentioned you can't really showcase your work if the piece belongs to the company that you worked for.
Well, no, you can transfer over ownership, but I usually make sure there's a clause that says I can display the.
That's exactly okay.
Oh,
that's
yeah,
what I was gonna bring up. Yeah, you can know. Yeah, exactly what he said.
Yeah. That's cool. All right. Cool. Were there any other things though? Like, in case I'm missing something too. Like, is there anything else that I should like? Oh, by the way, always put this clause in too, just in case. Like anything else like that.
I'm just careful between certain ones, I guess.
If there's anything that you feel uncomfortable about the contract, I'm sure you'll be able to negotiate that with them.
Yeah.
Negotiate with them about that.
Yeah. Normally, it's just the part I'm scared about is just the ownership part.
And yeah, things you don't understand, ask about.
Yeah. Oh, I guess I should point out as well at this time. It's pretty normal. It's going to be a scary part in your contract. Usually, when you work with certain types of clients, you do give up the rights to the work that you do for the company, and that's always kind of weird and seems really strange to read, but that's usually a normal part of the process, I believe. Though, again, you can also, if you're not okay with that, you can always discuss that with your client as well. I just know that that's a constant reoccurring thing that appears on contracts.
Yeah, in my experience, you really don't even notice it.
Yeah.
At the end, as long as you can always display the work and like say, hey, I made this, it's in my portfolio.
Yeah.
You don't even notice.
Yeah, I just thought that was a scary thing. I remember when I first read in contract, I was like, what, I don't own my work, but yeah, that's pretty.
Cool, thank you very much.
Yeah, no problem, thank you.
Hello.
Hello, sorry.
What would you find most rewarding about what you do?
Making people happy.
Is there any project that you love the most while working on?
I was really happy about Undertale.
Understandably.
I think I really like working on indie games a lot. It's always been a really satisfying feeling to like, oh, I did all this work and now I get to see it happening, and I get to control what I did. That's a really cool feeling. Anyone else want to share?
I just I like small projects because I can just really see where the input goes, and I mean, like, no, I don't mean anything against bigger ones. It's just that personally I can see where I am in a smaller project a lot easier.
Understandable.
Yeah. Does anybody else want? I feel so bad, Ellie.
Yeah, I'm good.
Okay,
Thank you
so
for your
much.
question.
And I'm sorry, we're going to take these last 3 questions, and I think it's almost the end of the panel, and I don't know if there's any panels ahead of us, so I just want to make sure we don't take up too much of their time as well. So I guess the last few questions,
Okay.
if that's okay.
I'll be quick.
That's okay.
What does Studio Yada look for in an animator?
That's not a question for me. You have to get in contact with the owner. Jay Gans, you can look him up on Twitter.
Yeah.
He has an email address in his bio, and if you shoot him an email, he will probably answer it for you.
Okay.
Yeah, he's also walking around the con, I believe. So.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, he's around somewhere here.
Yeah, he's here.
He is?
Yeah.
I've emailed him a lot, but I never heard anything back.
Okay, we can probably talk after the panel.
Okay.
And then,
Yeah, he's around here. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
Hi, I am an animator, and I would like some advice on how to get more views on my stuff.
Post a lot.
Yeah.
Like post a lot.
Well, Okay, I get that. But like, okay.
Oh, and drink water. It does come with actually posting a lot, honestly. If your work gets shared around, if you post a lot, it gets shared around a lot, more people see it a lot, and they'll come back to you to see more. That feels like an oversimplification, some simplification, honestly, but it's really the more you put out, the more people can see that can come back to you.
Yeah, people like seeing frequent updates of stuff.
Yeah.
Also, working on other projects if you can, to sort of like, oh, I've also worked on this and this thing. It's kind of hard to jump right into, if you haven't done work before, just to jump into your own content, I've noticed. I think a lot of people have an easier start, like, I guess, working on something, becoming more familiar and recognized around the community of the project you're working on or projects you're working on. So I think that's a good also way to kind of bring people in, I guess, because like they see a name reoccurring over and over again. They're like, hey, I remember when this person worked on this and this. So
Okay.
that helps a lot.
Is there a better platform than YouTube for sharing your
Newgrounds.
It's not really dead if people that are still animating are looking there.
I think Twitch also.
For just animating?
Yeah.
Vimeo is
put-
also
put on-
pretty good, but Newgrounds.
Put it on Twitter.
Yeah, Twitter. Yeah.
Post a lot of animated GIFs, put them on Twitter, especially of your work.
Twitter, Tumblr,
a lot of
Vimeo.
Oh yeah, Tumblr, Vimeo, all that. Basically every outlet. If you can think of an outlet, put it there.
Yeah.
Like there's not one that's worked for just one particular person. They've got their stuff on a lot of different things.
Yeah, for some reason I just only use Twitter basically, so.
So I hope that helped your question.
Yes.
All right.
Thank
cool.
you.
Hey,
Hello.
actually, I learned a lot. I think I'm coming in from the opposite end. So, I'm looking to hire someone professionally for their first time soon. Well, not soon, but eventually. And is there any resources where I can get templates for contracts and other paperwork that I don't even know yet that everyone's like comfortable with already, so I don't have to worry about lawyers and extra stuff like that?
Oh my gosh, I never thought about this.
This is a unique situation.
Yeah.
Drink water.
Just, like, it's my first time, and I want to look professional, but I'm tiny.
I feel that what I would usually like communicating with in a contractor is a polite conversation. No, not a conversation, but like a polite person to talk to. This is super weird because I usually get polite people talking to me, and I talk politely back. It's back and forth.
Do you have like anybody you know that does this kind of stuff already, like has hired artists or animators?
Well, I can name drop. I have an uncle that works at Full Sail. So.
It's okay, you don't have to. But that kind of question would probably be best for somebody who's done that kind of stuff, I think.
Yeah,
would
I
help
don't
a
wanna give
lot.
the wrong answer.
Yeah, because we're usually on the other end, so we don't know that stuff so good.
Oh, I'm the last guy.
Yeah, no, that's awesome though. Yeah.
Thank you for your time.
Well, thank you, and best of luck.
Yeah.
And thank you so much for being patient throughout all our technical difficulties. We
Yeah.
really appreciate it.
And I'm sorry we stumbled around so much. We're just like,
All right, so
Okay.
that's gotta be the
We're
wrap,
done.
huh?